Okay, let's talk about the Richie Incognito Jonathan Martin scandal, something that shocked the world back in 2013, and recently there have been comments that have made people reconsider how this whole thing went down, so I wanted to give my take on it. First, I just feel like every time there's a situation like this, so much misinformation gets spread, so much headlines that are taken out of context cause people to think certain things. So the first thing I want to do is really just go over the events, talk about what happened, what allegedly happened, and what seems to be what people agree happened. And then at the end, I will give my thoughts on it. Again, with these types of videos, I never try to get you as the viewer to think a certain way. I want to simply just give you the information to come to whichever conclusion you come to, although I will also give my opinions as well. So first, who are these people we're talking about? If you don't remember the scandal, maybe you're too young, or maybe you just weren't into football, or maybe you just missed it. Back in 2013, Richie Incognito, a veteran player for the Miami Dolphins, was teammates with Jonathan Martin, a player who was drafted in the second round and quite frankly struggled. If you look at his PFF grades, if you're into that kind of thing, you see not the best grades, nothing disastrous, but definitely on the low end for what you would want out of a second round pick. And while he was a little better in 2013, he very notably in the middle of the season quit the Miami Dolphins. It was during lunch. The other offensive linemen were ribbing him. He ended up storming out, allegedly, and that was the last we saw of him in a Dolphins uniform. So, okay, what happened here? Well, Jonathan Martin's mother used the word bullying to describe what Jonathan Martin had gone through in his year and a half with the Miami Dolphins, and because of that, this story spread like wildfire. Keep in mind, 12 years ago might not feel like forever ago, but the reality of the situation was people were shocked to learn that a NFL player could be subjected to bullying. That just felt like it was an impossibility that it could happen. So when this story broke, it really shocked a lot of people. What happened though? So there were a lot of reports to come out to say certain things that Richie Incognito and some others, which we'll get into, did to Jonathan Martin and some others, which we'll get into. This one is actually an interesting starting point, I think, because it's fascinating to me. So last year, Martin and other Miami rookies were subjected to deliberately bad haircuts at the hands of veterans. Offensive lineman Josh Shamuda had his eyebrows shaved and his hair shaved into a penis-shaped mohawk. Okay, right off the bat, that's kind of crazy, right? But this is, I think, what a lot of people that defended Richie Incognito would say, which is something I kind of agree with, actually. There are certain things that wouldn't be accepted in a traditional workplace, but are accepted in an NFL locker room, and that is just how these things work. And that doesn't necessarily mean we can't focus on fixing that if we want to, but this is something that I can see when I played sports. I could see something like this happening, and it's something that, at least when I played sports, I wouldn't necessarily want to take away from that locker room culture. Of course, it should be the kind of thing where it's always an opt-in, and no player should ever feel like they're getting forced to do something they don't want to do. But it's absolutely fair to say that some of these scandals are things that are accepted in an NFL locker room that maybe wouldn't be accepted if you're someone who never played sports and this stuff just sounds like insane. That's absolutely true. There also are some things that no matter how much you played sports, you're going to be looking at it and saying, yeah, that's not okay. For example, this, which said Martin told investigators Incognito joked that he and other teammates would rape Martin's sister, a medical student none of them had ever met. Incognito also used racial slurs with Martin, made jokes about slavery, and routinely demeaned Martin for not being black enough. Of course, the infamous voice message, which probably is the worst voice message to ever start with, "Hey, what's up?" I would say, I'm not going to read all this. You can read it if you want to. But yeah, very much not something that even under the umbrella of, football talk, this is going a step beyond. And the NFL world was a bit divided. So for one thing, you had New York Jets quarterback David Gerald. I'll read the bottom section. I would just say he's a jokester kind of guy, a good guy, but like all of us, you want to have your fair shake of pranks and stuff like that. It's unfortunate. You never want to get to the point where guys leave the team. You would hope other guys in the locker room would help police it. It's one of those situations that's sad to see. That's about the whole scandal, of course. But other players were a lot more critical of the situation. TJ Lang of the Green Bay Packers said, "Please don't stereotype NFL players for what's going on for Miami. That type of stuff is not common in other locker rooms." Bart Scott said, "He needs to be gone. No one would miss him anyway. Trust me." At the bottom part, you got to be some type of loser in your spare time away from the building if you want to call me and leave threatening messages and text on my phone. That's taking bullying to a whole other level. Also, this one, anytime a guy feels disrespected and like he can't go to work and feel comfortable, that's when you can't have that in the locker room. Because at the end of the day, he's playing for you, so you've got to take care of each other. So, again, there were some people who defended Incognito. There were also some people who were in NFL locker rooms who were highly critical of him. Although ultimately, what other players and what other people think about this scandal is, I wouldn't say irrelevant, but a bit besides the point. The main thing that matters is what the quote-unquote victim feels about all this stuff, right? What did Jonathan Martin think? And it's hard to say exactly. He really didn't talk much with the media when he was going through this situation. He did admit that when he was with the Dolphins, he attempted suicide, so that's definitely not good. Obviously, it would be unfair to pin the entire scandal and to pin Richie Incognito for that, because it seems pretty clear that that Jonathan Martin was just going through mental health issues, period, regardless of even if he had a great locker room situation. But you do wonder, if he had a great locker room situation, could that have been helpful? Jonathan Martin did at one point post this on Instagram, which says, when you're a bully victim and a coward, your only options are suicide or revenge. And then he's tagged a few people, including a school, and Richie Incognito and Mike Pouncey, someone else who was named in the bullying scandal. This was in 2015, so this was years after the whole scandal broke, but that was very concerning, very alarming, and Jonathan Martin did get arrested, and he got charged with 4 felonies for this. So definitely, again, this is a complex issue, and it's hard to say exactly what's going on. In fairness to Incognito, like I said, there were some players who defended him, and there was this comment, which this is comments from a former NFL offensive lineman who played for the Dolphins. So he was around the building, although he wasn't there. He never played with Martin. He said on the Incognito voicemail, this is about Incognito, he was the jokester on the team, and he joked with everybody from players to coaches. That voicemail he sent came from a place of humor, but where he really screwed up was using the N-word. That I can't condone, and it's probably the biggest reason he's not with the team right now. Odd thing is, I've heard Incognito call Martin the same thing to his face in meetings, and all Martin did was laugh. Now, many people could view this as, well, maybe Martin didn't actually have an issue with some of this stuff and he was cool with it. And again, if 2 people are cool with it, like, I'm not going to be the third person to say, well, actually, it's not okay. Although, it is worth mentioning, it's possible that Martin maybe was laughing just to go along with it. Doesn't like it, but it's easier to laugh than to, fight back. Like, that is a thing that does happen. So, you can't fully jump to conclusions one way or the other here. But that is, I think, worth noting. And it's also possible Richie Incognito thought he was doing everything okay, thought he was just, participating in locker room talk. And I actually think that's probably what happened, is I don't think he maybe realized to the extent his words could cause damage to somebody. However, again, it's impossible to say exactly for sure what was going on. But I do think it's worth mentioning that while Incognito and Jonathan Martin were the kind of 2 people that got talked about the most, it's worth mentioning they were not the only 2 people involved in this scandal. Richie Incognito, along with offensive lineman John Jerry and Mike Pouncey, were the 3 people in this scandal. And there was also an unnamed player besides Martin who, in the Wells report, mentioned that they had faced harassment, as well as a staff member and an assistant trainer who have also said they've received harassment from those 3 players for the Miami Dolphins. A notable one was this one, which said the report also concluded that Incognito, Jerry, and Pouncey made several racial slurs towards the assistant trainer, and Incognito and Jerry taunted him by saying they had sex with his girlfriend. On December 7th, 2012, the anniversary of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, Incognito, Jerry, and Pouncey donned traditional Japanese headbands featuring a rising sun emblem, which the assistant trainer had given them, and jokingly threatened to harm the assistant trainer physically in retaliation for the Pearl Harbor attack. The assistant trainer, who is from Japan, confided in Martin that he was upset about the Pearl Harbor comments, finding them derogatory towards his heritage. So again, ultimately, we can sit here and decide what is or isn't offensive, but I think, to me, the first place it should start with was who received the comments, and this is a clear example of someone who received the comments not appreciating them and finding them offensive. So okay, that's the recap. That's what we knew so far. But you might have, if you've been sort of half following along with, football, notice some headlines that seem interesting. This one from the New York Post says Jonathan Martin walks back Richie Incognito bullying allegations that rocked NFL community. That says walked back, but there's some that are even a bit more aggressive. This one from the Miami Herald says Jonathan Martin admitted he lied about being bullied, opinion. And this one, which was a Barstool Sports thing, which, hey, a lot of people still read that stuff, and that might be their only source of information, even if it's not necessarily, considered, high journalistic blogs and stuff like that. But this says Jonathan Martin admits he lied about being bullied by Richie Incognito because it was easier than telling the truth. That quote, "It was easier than telling the truth," I have not found anywhere other than the article I just showed earlier, where there was the opinion where the writer said that, but Jonathan Martin did not say that, even though the quote makes it seem like he did. But maybe I'm wrong about that, but as doing my research, I have not found it, and there is no source to that quote in the article. Or maybe you're a big Part of My Take fan, and you saw this on your YouTube feed right before you clicked on this video, which says, in the middle of it, Richie Incognito gets his name cleared, which I watched the whole clip of, and we'll talk about all this. Well, did he get his name cleared? Well, I mean, if you read the article, the one everyone's talking about, there's this quote: "I never believed for a second I was being bullied," Martin says now. Oh, okay, I guess Martin lied about this whole thing, right? If that's the quote. Not exactly. If you read the whole article, it's very clear what Martin is talking about is the actual term bullying. At no point is he saying he lied. In fact, he never said the word bullying to begin with. Remember, that was his mother. And at no point is he saying these events did not happen. What he is simply talking about is he never felt like that counted as bullying towards him, which is still notable, right? That matters. But that's a different conversation than saying he lied, which is not what he said. Like here, this is a insert from the article. When Martin left the Dolphins facility on October 28, 2013, reporters started asking questions. At some point after his departure, Martin said during the 2024 phone call, his mother told a reporter that he was being bullied in Miami. She said the word bullying. He later went on to say, "I had a situation with my teammates that I wasn't super happy about, but my mother had her own read on the situation. The word took on," and this isn't a quote, this is from the article itself. "The word took on a life of its own. The situation went viral." Just to clarify what I said, the last sentence was something that the person who wrote the article said, not what Martin had said. So, okay, this is different, right, than saying that he lied about the situation. This is him essentially getting into a semantics argument about what counts as bullying and what just simply counts as a situation that he disagrees with. Later on in the article, he would say, "But I don't have any hard feelings towards anybody from that situation because Richie Incognito and Mike Pouncey have already peaked. They've already achieved the most success they're going to achieve in their life, and I'm just getting started." So it doesn't feel like he's still a huge fan of them, even though he just said, "I don't have any hard feelings towards them." At least that's my read of that comment. Still kind of throwing a diss out there at them that they've already peaked and he's just getting started. Also, I felt like I should mention as well, Martin did come out and say he expressed regret in not clarifying that he never considered what happened to him bullying. He simply considered it a personal issue. Again, to be clear, that's not him saying that the stuff never happened, just that's how he personally considered it. So what's my take on all of this? Well, first, again, I think you can have whatever opinion you want to have, but to people saying that, well, this clears Richie Incognito, you're just, I feel like, not paying attention. Because even if Jonathan Martin came out and said, "I lied about all of this stuff," other people still had comments about this. Like I said, Martin was only one person involved in this scandal. There was another player and multiple other people who had come forward and said that there was harassment here. I do think it's possible that Richie Incognito, during this whole situation, never felt like he was doing anything wrong. He simply just felt as though, well, this is football culture, we have to be tough. And in fact, there were even sources, although I don't know if this is fully official, but there were sources who said that Dolphins coaches told Richie Incognito to try and toughen up Jonathan Martin. This might have been his attempt at trying to toughen up Jonathan Martin, and he just did it in a way that made Jonathan Martin feel worse. They did have a long relationship for a while. That's worth mentioning. They seemed friendly, according to pictures and certain snippets that were included, I think, largely by Incognito and posted by Incognito, but still, they did have a long relationship. The Wells reports mentioned that they had text conversations for over a year. They played next to each other on an offensive line. You're going to have a lot of communication with each other if that's the case. It's a difficult situation with a lot of nuance involved. But I want to end this video by talking about bullying itself because, listen, there are a lot of young people that watch this video, and I want to be clear, just because you sign up for a game doesn't mean that you can be talked to in any specific way. While it is true that the line for what is acceptable behavior might get pushed a little bit when you are playing sports, there still is a line. You can't do anything you want to do. And to simply just say, well, it's just what happened in a locker room, who cares? Well, does that give you free reign to do whatever you want? And the answer is no. And I'm not really even talking about Incognito. I'm just talking in general at this point. If you are someone who plays sports right now, and maybe you're someone who is the guy who likes to rib people, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you ever feel like you might be going overboard or just, unsure, there's nothing wrong with simply pulling someone aside and saying, hey, just to be clear, is there any issues going on? Like, are you cool with this stuff? And if they say yes, then cool, you can keep doing it. And if they say, actually, it does kind of bother me, then okay, well then, you can, that can be a way to help. Sometimes just asking people how they're feeling is a great way to get this across. Again, not to say that that's always going to be the case, but that can be a way to help. And if you are someone who is getting harassed while playing sports and it does bother you, sometimes you can simply just do the thing on the other way. Just say, hey, just so you know, I don't like when you do that. That can be a great starting point. It might not stop for a lot of people. People might still continue to do things. But then at least when you go to a higher up, go to a coach, go to a parent, or go to somebody else, then you can say, I did tell them to stop, and they continued doing it. Tell them, not in a joking way, but just straight up say it. I know I'm getting a little bit after school special here, but these are things that can help. At the end of the day, being a good teammate means feeling like kind of what the Jets offensive lineman said earlier, being a good teammate means that everyone feels comfortable and everyone feels like they can play together. You're supposed to be a team, not against each other. So that's just kind of how I feel about that. And again, that's not about Incognito. That's just a general point. But yeah, those are my thoughts on all of this. I'm sure you will have thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to agree or disagree with anything I said. If you feel like there is a piece of information that I missed, hey, I'm human. I'm doing my best here, but that's possible. Definitely link it in the comments below if it's important and something I should have put in the story. I will, pin the comment. So yeah, definitely help me out there. But yeah, those are my thoughts on all of this. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.